It's crazy because it has 40's, but the tires look like they're the right size for the rig.
Exactly.
The truck it's big. Don't get me wrong. The truck feels huge compared to like my pickup, but it's got just the right amount of lift to tire to body ratio that it looks.
Yeah.
It's something I was super concerned about when building it. Oh man, these 40's are going to be insane, especially like when it had the 31-inch stock tires on it. I just put the 40 up to it when it was stock. I'm like, man, I don't know if it's going to work, but it did, and it looks awesome.
Warning. The 4x4 Canada podcast contains discussion about exploring mountains, camping beside lakes, and enjoying the outdoors. Guests also talk about jumping race trucks side by side, racing 1,000 horsepower rigs across mud pits, and jumping monster trucks over stacks of buses. None of this is for the faint of heart. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for bringing out your inner adrenaline junkie or making you want to get out there and explore the back roads from coast to coast. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for broken parts due to jumping your vehicle, hitting mud poles too hard, crossing deep streams, and doing other dumb shit. However, we will take credit for inspiring you to explore mountaintops, spend quality time outdoors with your friends, or meeting new like-minded people, and most importantly of all, following your dreams. Hey everybody, Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host Wes.
And I'm Clinton from Dirt Garage.
Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast, Clinton. We are without Trisha tonight. She is working an extra shift, so unfortunately it'd just be you guys, but that's okay because it's two BC boys talking about Toyotas. Just want to do a quick little shout out to last week's episode with Just a Jeep Girl from Instagram. She's an Ontario Jeeper. And if you haven't listened to it, you got to go back and check it out. Trisha and I had so many laughs with her. We're constantly laughing throughout the episode, as well as talking about some good four-wheeling in Ontario. She's got a white four-door Rubicon. And we also talked about a new nickname for Dwayne from Just Jeeping Adventures for his vehicle. So if you haven't listened to that one, go check it out. It was so much fun. Next week, we got a interview coming up with the Trillium Recovery group out of Ontario. They are a volunteer group that goes out and does 4x4 recoveries and rescues, as well as quads and even tractors and things like that. And joining us also on that interview is Ian from Afraid Not Ropes. And that's going to be a really interesting one. Like I say, it's a bunch of volunteers that go out and help each other. And that's really what this whole sport is about, right? Helping out each other when we can. But let's hop into this interview. Clinton from Dirt Garage, welcome again. I've been really looking to this for a while. I'm a third Tacoma owner.
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The front end anyways.
I'm part of a third gen.
Yours is a lot more hardcore than mine. I got to say that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a beast. Yeah.
Thanks.
I definitely
appreciate it.
Oh, if you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. Dirt Garage on YouTube. He's running a second/third. It's a beautiful looking rig. The proportion is just right. It's not sitting too high. It's not too low. And it just looks awesome.
It's crazy because it has 40's, but the tires look like they're the right size for the rig.
Exactly.
The truck it's big. Don't get me wrong. The truck feels huge compared to like my pickup, but it's got just the right amount of lift to tire to body ratio that it looks.
Yeah.
It's something I was super concerned about when building it. Oh man, these 40's are going to be insane, especially like when it had the 31-inch stock tires on it. I just put the 40 up to it when it was stock. I'm like, man, I don't know if it's going to work. But it did, and it looks awesome.
Yeah, the proportions are perfect. Like you nailed it on that one. So you got to get lucky every once in a while, right?
Yeah, it was all new to me. But
yeah. So we'll throw this in our show notes, but our listeners can reach you at Dirt Garage on Facebook,
on YouTube?
Instagram, YouTube. YouTube's a big one.
Yeah. YouTube's
you got tons of videos on YouTube, basically with a Toyota Focus. And the one thing I do want to mention also is dirtgarage.ca. That's where all your merchandise is. And we do want to throw a note out there. We'll put these all in the show notes as well as
Of course, I'm wearing none of it.
It is what it is.
I got my truck tuned recently by the Overland Taylor tune.
Yes, I saw
They
that.
gave me a
Yes.
hat.
So what did you think of them? Let's hop back right straight into that then. I saw the
Okay.
video, but especially third gen Tacomas more so than the second gens, but the third gens really need a tune, I feel,
Yeah.
in regards to shifting points and
Yeah.
stuff like that. What did you think about your tune?
I was totally skeptical going into it because I'm like, it's a gas motor. What, like, there's not any turbo anything to play with or anything
Yep.
like that. So I was like, is it really going to be that different? Plus, it's a manual. And I was like, you would think Toyota would give you the most direct pedal to throttle body speed possible so that you've got the most control. But apparently, I'm wrong. Apparently, there was a lot to gain there. I had no idea.
It was funny watching the video and watching your
Yeah.
expressions because it was a surprise to you, as you mentioned.
I wasn't surprised. I was skeptical. And I think part of it is you just get used to how it feels.
Yeah.
Like you get used to maybe a little bit of pedal delay that is just normal to you until you have like instant pedal. You're like, oh, wow. Okay. There's a difference. That was very noticeable. The extra torque in the, I want to say 1500 to 3000
Yep.
RPM range actually makes a huge difference. Like I was snow wheeling on the weekend, and there's many times where I would start in second gear when I needed to build up a lot of wheel speed really quick in
Yep.
4-low, and it would just instantly snap, and you can feel it pull right through into the higher RPMs instantly through even the second gear starts or third gear starts. So it did it blew my mind.
Yeah. And it's even more so for the automatic guys because shift points on those Toyotas are horrible, right? So
yeah, I believe it. And haven't noticed any difference really, like fuel economy wise or anything. I would assume it would be worse because of the extra power, but haven't noticed.
But there's various tunes out there as well too. But I know that a few guys that have got them, and they're saying that the mileage went up, and they got more throttle response. And
oh, really? And maybe that'll be an automatic to manual thing because a manual at the end of the day, it's how you drive it.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got all the power to make it great on gas or really bad.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're talking about, your badass Tacoma on the 40s, we'll get to that in a second, but I do want to talk about the Dirt Garage YouTube channel where it started. All right. You're living in the BC Kootenays, so I can totally understand loving the outdoors, that you're surrounded by mountains. So did you grow up there?
Yeah, I was born in Mission, moved here when I was like 2 years old. So most of my childhood was in Cranbrook here. My first truck was a 91 Toyota pickup. I got it when I was like 16 when I got my driver's license. After high school, went to college in Kelowna, sold the truck because I needed a car, something more practical for college. As soon as I finished school, I'm like, screw this, I'm moving back to the mountains. Kelowna's expensive. There's not a lot of outdoor activities. There is some, but there's not a lot that are like there in your backyard. Like here, I could drive 5 minutes and be at a trailhead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I moved back to Cranbrook, instantly sold my car, bought another Toyota pickup, my 89, the one that I have now. And
and the rest is history.
And the rest is history, yeah.
Yeah. So you're obviously a Toyota fan. That's pretty much what your channel is about. Yeah. You've got anything from the 89 and newer pickups. You got 4Runners. You got a car in there, a lifted car in there.
Corolla.
The Corolla. And you've got a huge amount of tech information. That's one thing I really enjoy about your channel is that you've got some 4-wheel drive stuff. You're up in the mountains and stuff like that. But the amount of tech advice and tech stuff that you've got on your channel is incredible, especially those 89 to 95s. And it's really neat watching. There's everything with solid axle swaps. There's engine conversions. I watched the other one the other day about when you're talking about the 63-inch rear leafs. And
the Chevy 63s,
Yeah, exactly. And in double transfer cases, and you got all kinds of stuff. What are some of your favorite mods for those older Toyotas?
Dual transfer cases is pretty well a must.
Yeah.
That's one thing that the Tacoma needs so desperately is dual transfer cases. Like it just unlocks, it's like cheat codes. It makes wheeling easier, but like more, and in a way, like you could be a lot more graceful about your lines and how you get up things. It's easier on parts. It's easier on your clutch, especially in like a manual transmission where you have to ride the clutch to go slow to get up boulders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The duals is just a complete game.
So there's a couple different ways of doing duals, right?
Yeah, like the original is the Marlin Crawler. Like he pretty much started it all, whole dual cases. But now there's companies like Northwest Fab, I think they are, and they're in
Yep.
BC, and they have an Eco Box, I think they call it, which is a cheaper way of doing it, and it allows you to use your chain drive cases if you have the V6 trucks and stuff instead of the 4-cylinder stuff. Because in
Okay.
my pickup, I had the V6 trans, but I had to use an adapter to go to the 4-cylinder transfer case, and then I had to upgrade the internals of the 4-cylinder transfer case to be a bigger spline count, so that all just there's a ton of ways of doing it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Then,
it's expensive to do it. I think like maybe $5,000 into my setup for just transfer cases alone in the pickup, but it is so worth it.
but yeah, if you're doing some of those hardcore trails where you need
Yeah.
that extra gearing, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
A lot of people swap out that 3.4 engine into the older trucks, getting rid of those old 3 liters and that,
Yeah.
with the head gasket problems and everything
Yeah.
like that. You've done a few of those, but you've also
Yep.
done a 1UZ. Can you
Yeah.
explain what that is and why you did that instead of an LS?
The 1UZ is like, well,
Is it-
I'll put
We're
it
in
this way.
Canada. We're in
Oh,
Canada.
oh.
There's 1UZ.
Yeah, dude, honestly, I hop back and forth between which way I
Is-
say. And there's videos of me talking about the 1UZ where I will call it a 1UZ and a 1UZ multiple times, just be switching back and forth.
It's all good.
But the one is, it's known as the Japanese LS, essentially.
Yeah.
People just swap it in literally everything. It's super readily available, especially in Japan. They very commonly used in like drift cars and racing, which is why there's so much aftermarket support for it, which is why I was able to put 1UZ in my pickup, which with an adapter for a drift car that using an R151 transmission. And I think that's in a Super R something. So
Yeah.
the adapter exists because of the drift world.
Yeah.
And same with the standalone ECU and harness that I use in it exists because of the racing world.
Yep.
I can now put that in my Toyota pickup, which is not what it was meant for whatsoever. But the reason I went with that over an LS is it's an aluminum block and everything's aluminum. Like every single like idler pulley, alternator bracket, everything on it is aluminum. Fuel rails,
Yeah.
everything. Like Toyota spent so much time and money making that motor as efficient and light as possible. It's awesome. It's about 380 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Which is lighter than the V6 that I took out of it. And you gain 2 cylinders. Where in LS, I think you're closer to 500 pounds, and it's hard to find an aluminum block.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
to save that bit of weight.
Yeah, and it's a Toyota engine.
And
putting a Toyota into a Toyota.
That was the biggest thing. The
Yeah.
pickup, I was I wanted everything to be Toyota, essentially. The transfer cases are Toyota, the engine's Toyota, the front diff is Toyota, except for the leaf springs, but Toyota doesn't have an option that is that long, honestly.
Yeah. So what does that V8 come in? Is it
LS
the Tundras and stuff like that? Or
So the 2UZ is in the Tundras and 4Runner and Sequoia. But I use a 1UZ, which is from Lexus cars, like an SC400 or an LS400 from 89 to 2003, I believe.
Okay. So they're still readily available in Canada wise.
And the 1UZ is the first one, and then the 2UZ is what was found in like the Tundra and stuff. That one isn't aluminum. It's heavier because Toyota made it to go in like the Tundra and stuff that they don't care about saving weight on. It was never meant for a car. So they're not as common to be swapped in. But stuff like the oil pan is identical. Like the block is pretty well the same. Everything about it is pretty well the same. Like the bell housing adapter kit that I use is the same 2UZ to 1UZ. I originally did the 2UZ before my truck lit on fire. And then I took all the parts from the 2UZ that I bought that were savable and put them on the 1UZ block, and everything bolted up. And the reason I went with the 2UZ originally is because I got the truck for free on a trade that had the motor in it. So
perfect. You can't complain at that, right?
No, exactly. And then that truck lasted literally that engine lasted like one fire for 3 seconds it was running for, I think.
But it's a good time to swap in that 1UZ, right? So
yeah, it was a good excuse to take that truck down to bare steel and repaint it and put ultimately a better motor in it anyways.
So how do they catch on fire?
That was when I first did the two UZ swap. It had a couple problems. So I noticed when I was first trying to start it that when I turned the key on, the fuel pump wasn't kicking out. So it was still delivering fuel, which I thought, oh, that won't be an issue. It'll just go down the return. I'm going to keep trying to start it. I didn't realize that it had a leaking fuel injector out of an injector seal the entire time I was sitting there trying to crank it. And I was cranking it for 45 seconds because it was starting to sputter and spurt like it wanted to start. So I just kept there cranking it without noticing that there was fuel filling up in the valley of my engine and all over my engine bay until it was too late. It did eventually start. As I said, it was about 45 seconds of cranking it. And then like 3 seconds after running, it flames engulfed from my engine bay. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, panic mode, eh?
Yeah, panic mode. I unloaded 2 fire extinguishers in it. It wasn't enough because there was so much fuel in the valley of the engine that I could not physically get a fire extinguisher in it. My shop got smoked out. I had to call the fire department to come put it out. And they got it out, dragged my truck out into the snow. And by that time, the fire's already moved into the interior and burnt up my dash and like carpet. Luckily, I had my seats pulled and a lot of my interior pulled out for the engine swap for doing wiring because I just do that by default just because there's very little room in those cabs to lay on your back and do wiring under the dash. So easiest is to take the 4 bolts out, pull the seat out. And the firefighter said that it was a good thing that I had the seats out because that is what usually makes the fire huge and will take out like the structure, like my shop, if my seats were in. And I had my carpet pulled back for the same reason, for wiring.
Yeah. And carpet is another thing too. Once that fire gets into the carpet, it just, and it can stay in there for a while too. Yeah. So
it was
super lucky, but it's a good opportunity to do some rebuilding.
Yeah. And luckily at the time, Sean and Casey were doing the Flex Friday Live, and they were nice enough to do a GoFundMe to help me get that truck back on the road. I think we raised like $5,000 or $4,000, something like that, to help me get it back together, which is huge bonus. I would not have been able to do it nearly as fast as I did without that, because it was like a full restoration to get the truck back from fire. Most people would have just taken the truck to the scrapyard. But it's weird because on YouTube, you are in a different scenario than most people. Okay, my truck lit on fire. This is now content. I can now make something of this. I can do a whole series rebuilding it. Even if it's not the most practical thing ever, like getting another cab and putting all my good parts underneath that probably would have been faster.
Probably,
But I built the whole channel around that truck, and it had a lot of nostalgic value to me. And I said it was the first truck I bought when I moved back to Cranbrook.
So let's talk about that truck. You got the 1UZ in it. You've got your dual transfer case, your solid axle swapped. What else you got going on with that?
So right now I got the cab off again because I'm doing a lot more. I'm doing a lot more work. I decided. So after building the Tacoma, it's got a 3-link front suspension. And the pickup was solid axle swapped on leaf springs. And it rode like a truck on leaf springs. And I got spoiled by the Tacoma. I'm like, man, this thing is just, it's so cushy. It rides really nice. I can comfortably go like highway speeds down bush roads. It's crazy what a difference it made. So I'm like, I'll never be able to justify driving this pickup again with the Tacoma, as awesome as it is. But I really like driving the pickup. The Tacoma is fun and all, but there's just something about driving like an 80s Toyota. Like it's just old and it feels cool.
Nostalgia is right there too, right?
Like you get in it. I don't know. It's just fun. It's got a V8. It roars. It's got dual transfer cases. It's the perfect size. The Tacoma's huge and it doesn't fit everywhere. Where the pickup, the extended cab, the mini truck form factor is just the perfect wheelbase to climb everything and fit in everywhere you need to go. Pretty much everywhere a side by side will go, that'll go. The Tacoma is a completely different story. It does not fit in a lot of places.
You're running 1-ton axles, so you're full size basically.
Exactly. It's essentially a full size. Cab's a bit smaller, but then I got the fiberglass to cover the tire so that it's street legal. And it's got 4 doors. So
that's right.
There's a lot more body to worry about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the pickup needed a resurrection so that I'd use it. And this time around, it'll be used for more hardcore stuff instead of the Tacoma, because I got the Tacoma to worry about the body on. The
Yeah.
pickup, I don't really want to worry about it. So I'm building, I got rid of the bed while it was still worth something before I
Not
destroy
all
it.
rusted out.
Yeah. And I'm going to build a tube bed, something I can drag on trees and rocks and not worry about damaging it. Some front
Yep.
fenders, I want to build like some tube style fenders for it, just stuff for protection so that I can confidently wheel it a lot harder than before.
What size tires you running on the
37.
pickup? Yeah. That's a nice
They're
size
just,
for those truck.
yeah, it's a good size. And I'm just running Toyota axles. I'm never going to run bigger on that truck.
Yep.
I really like the size of Toyota axles. It doesn't make the truck super wide. The 8-inch diff center gives you lots of ground clearance underneath the diff, whereas the
Yep.
1 tons like the Sterling 10.5 and the Tacoma is huge. Like,
Totally. We were out snow wheeling in the weekend and running 40s, and both trucks running 40s and running 14 bolts in the back. And the one truck didn't have a shaved 14 bolt. And you see the tracks going through, and then you got a third track in the middle. Everywhere he went was because that 14 bolt hanging down, right?
I don't even think there is shave kits for the Sterling axle.
I don't think so. No,
not super common axle. But I bought the pair of axles for $800, and I just wanted to use a matching pair. For easier to find parts for, and not less missy matchy parts on the truck, the better, I thought. And the Sterling is super strong.
You wouldn't have a problem with that. Yeah. On your pickup, what are you running for lockers?
So, lock right. This is the lunchbox locker in the rear and e-locker up front from like a factory Tacoma e-locker.
Yeah.
That would normally be in the rear.
How do you find that lunchbox locker?
I love the lunchbox locker. I put that in, I want to say 2016, and it's been stupid reliable. It's never let me down, has never broke. It's always worked when I want it to work. I can't say that about any other locker I've ever used.
Yeah.
2 days ago, I had issues with the Tacoma's air locker because I found a pinhole in the airline, so I didn't have a lock when I was all snow wheeling in the front. And the pickup e-locker in the front, the Toyota's actuators are just notoriously bad, and they're insanely expensive to replace. So I've always just gambled on junkyard ones, which I might get like a year of use out of, and then I got to find another junkyard one. It's just $600 for an actuator is a lot.
It's
you
incredible.
Could buy a whole locker for that.
And you can't even really. You can take them apart a bit, but you can't really rebuild
There's no
them
rebuild
per se.
kits or anything for them. No, your best option is to like convert them to a cable.
Yeah,
and it's a company that makes those like cable conversions for them.
Okay,
I've got a buddy in Kelowna who's actually made a kit to convert them to an air locker, which seems interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. But with the air lockers, like you mentioned, you always got to worry about the air.
That's one thing I've never loved about the air locker. At least like an e-locker, you got your like electronic system and that's it. Or an air lock, you're relying on electronic system and an air system. And if like you got a blown fuse or a relay or something, or your compressor won't turn on. And if you have a leak in your airline, that won't lock. So there's just multiple points of failure with an air locker, which I've never been a fan of. But e-lockers really, it's super easy to diagnose and figure out what's going on. And usually it's just an actuator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My YJ years ago, back when the air lockers first came out, we could just never get that thing working properly. There's always some sort of a leak somewhere. And this is going back 20 years ago, but it just,
probably still exists today. Even when we were on the whipsaw with Sean, with his Gladiator, he had constant issues with the ARB locker in his Dana 60 in his front.
Yeah.
And I guess he was just told that's just how it is on the Dana 60 U-lockers or air lockers. They just don't work when you want them to. It's probably the same air locker that I have in my Dana 60.
Probably. So let's move on to the beast, the Tacoma. As I mentioned earlier, it's basically a second gen Tacoma that you threw the third gen front clip on it.
Yeah.
You did solid axle, you did the 1 tons on it, and the 40s, of course, but you got the 3-link suspension in the front. Let's maybe give a bit of a run through for the listeners on what you got going on there.
All right, there is a lot. So I'll start from the beginning. I bought that Tacoma from my local Toyota dealership. It was $4,000 for a 2010 Toyota Tacoma double cab short bed. That price tag on a Tacoma that new doesn't exist here, but
Yep.
there was a pretty good reason for it. The front diff was completely blown up. All the ball joints were done in it. The tie rods were done. It needed a power steering rack. It was full of dents. The interior looked like a bear's gone through it. Yeah, it just had a ton of issues that, like, to the dealership, it was worth nothing, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, I looked at it, I saw how the front end was clapped out, and I was like, this is perfect because I don't care about any of that IFS stuff.
Exactly.
And I've been itching to play with like tons and 40s on the channel, but haven't had an excuse to be able to do it because I didn't want to do it to the pickup because it just would have been too big.
Yeah.
So when I saw this and I saw the price thing, I'm like, man, I think this is my next rig. I picked it up and instantly started planning out the build for it. I said when I bought it that this was the truck that I'm doing tons and 40s on. And I knew from somewhere on the internet well before that second gen and third gen cabs are completely identical. Like almost all the body lines are the same. You can bolt everything from a third gen to a second gen and it'll work in factory locations. Like even if you want all the door body lines, everything, the doors will move over the front fenders, hood, headlights, all that. But it was like, I've always loved the looks of the third gen since they came out. I've always wanted one. I've never been crazy about the 2.5. So, and in my eyes, is man, I can have a third gen, have the drivetrain that I actually want.
Exactly.
So it's the best of both. And in my eyes, anyways, I know there's a lot of people in the comments that are like, man, why would you put a third gen on a second gen? Second gen is so much better. I'm like, because I like the looks of it. And
it does look so good. Yeah, exactly. Just let me do what I want. All right.
Right. And so I knew that it needed fiberglass right away because 1 tons are wider than the truck itself. The Ford axles are 69 inches wheel mount surface to wheel mount surface, which is, I think, about 5 inches wider than the Tacoma is. So I got since I had to buy fiberglass anyways, and I like the third gens, I got the third gen conversion fiberglass for it, which are, I think they're a +3 on width on either side to cover the tires. But yeah, so anyways, I got that. Now I'm trying to remember the timeline. It all happened so fast. So the original plan for the truck was to do a daily vlog build for it, which was something that I put together because honestly, it's easier to get parts sponsored if you have a solid game plan on how you're going to build it and you have a content strategy around it. That was the main reason I did it. So I can make a solid pitch deck and send it out to all these companies and say, hey, who wants to help out on this? Because there's no way I would have been able to build that Tacoma nearly as fast as I did without getting outside help.
Yep.
Yeah, I put a pitch deck together saying that I'm going to build this truck in 30 days, daily vlogs, working on the truck during the day, editing through the night, pumping out a video for the next morning, rinse and repeat for 30 days straight until the truck was done. Which
in other words, how to wear yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was super ambitious. It was pretty fun. The community I had around it was pretty neat at the time. Like you would see the same names in the comments every single day, always being super supportive. So it was neat to see. And people were genuinely sad when it ended. There was people that they looked forward to it every day. And I had messages from people about how it inspired them and it helped them through their tough times. And I'm like, how would that even happen? I'm just a guy that posts videos on the internet, man. But it's cool. And it was cool to see that it actually had an impact on people just building a truck because I like building trucks.
Yeah. But it's everybody watches the videos for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
And you never know what people are going through. And it's weird how something can trigger something, right? So yeah, that's awesome.
It is super cool. At like Halloween, I got an email from a guy in the States who sent me a picture of his kid dressed as me for Halloween. And the guy sending the email, his dad, he was dressed as a Toyota Tacoma.
That is awesome.
The most adorable thing ever.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, yeah, you never know how you inspire different people and
Yeah.
how other people inspire you. So
Mhm.
it ends up going full circle.
Absolutely. And think of it much, especially because I'm not a big channel by any means, like 43,000 subscribers or something, but it's still apparently got some reach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're people from all over in your comments. So
Mhm.
it's not just a Canada thing and it's not just a
No,
Western States thing or
no,
whatever.
it's all over the place. There's comments from like Australia and like
Yeah.
all over the world.
Yeah. That's going to be cool just to realize that there's somebody in Australia watching your videos.
It is pretty cool. And like I
Yeah.
see it honest a lot through like when people order merch, I see where it's getting sent to. And like,
Oh,
wow,
really?
people watch my videos in like this random country in Africa or area somewhere. I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah. It's funny. We were looking through our stats at the
Yeah.
end of last year, and our third most popular country to be listened to, obviously, is Canada and the States, but then it
Yeah.
was Great Britain and Germany, and
Yeah.
they had
I've
some
done a lot
significant numbers.
from Germany and yeah, the UK as well. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
And you
wow.
don't think of it because like the top three in your analytics, because mine's USA, Canada, and Australia.
Yeah,
Those are my top three. I'd assume
yeah.
because there's a lot of Toyota guys in Australia that to go wheeling
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and like the look like our scenery. It's the same reason I like 4-wheel drive action or whatever is because their scenery is different than us.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
something interesting to watch. And probably the same way
That would be one hell of a trip to go over to Australia, though. Way,
it would be. Yeah.
yeah.
It
Go over and
looks
meet
like it
some.
would be pretty expensive trip if you were to bring your rig over.
Yeah. But I think you got enough of a following. Say, hey, I want to come to Australia for a couple of weeks. Let's go do
Yeah.
something. And I think that would
Oh
be,
yeah. It's definitely something I'd be interested in. But
yeah. Back to the Tacoma.
yeah, we keep getting sidetracked.
So you're running the one tons. You said you picked
Yeah.
those up fairly cheap.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, you're running that 3-link kit in the front.
Yeah.
That's a really nice kit by the looks of it.
It is a beautiful kit. The kit is from Martech Engineering. Nick, he's the guy that runs the company. He's actually a pretty good friend of mine now. We talk pretty well every day.
Yeah.
He's helping me through the 3-link on my pickup. Every time I've got questions about geometry and stuff, I just send him a quick text and he's like super quick to reply and super helpful. He really knows what he's talking about. But the kit he designed for the Tacoma is like beautiful. You cut the IFS off. The frame plates index into factory holes that already exist in the Tacoma, so you can't screw up its location. The shock towers index into the frame plates, and then the panhard bar mount indexes into that. Like everything is meant so that you cannot screw up where it needs to land. So for anyone that's like new to 3-link and is worried about ruining their vehicles by accidentally welding something in the wrong spot or having the wrong link or geometry or something, he makes it like dead simple. Like,
Yeah. I was looking at it and yeah, it's a bit of money for the kit, but when you
it
think
is.
about it, it's worth it though.
Yeah.
You had to sit there and engineer the length of your arms and
Yeah.
all this other stuff. And
Yeah,
how much time would you spend and learning that knowledge as well is a whole other thing.
You have to sit there, figure out your link lengths, your link positions. What I was dealing with today on the pickup, like the panhard bar, trying to package that in between your steering and the axle and making sure that it's the same angle of the dangle as your tie rod. There's just a lot of things that you don't think about when you think about 3-links and stuff. If you haven't ever done it, that kit just does it all. It's all figured out for you. It's worth every penny. If anyone wants to Sasser Tacoma, I would 100% recommend that kit because it's frameless. I compare it to doing the leaf spring solid axle swaps on the older Toyotas. It's just as easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally makes sense. Like say I was going through their website and checking it out. Now, of course, I watched your videos and that, but just it makes it like a no-brainer. And it's the same idea as both putting on a long arm kit on a Jeep. Really,
it's easy.
Yeah,
it's
everything's all engineered out.
Factory location, exactly. It's all ready to go. They designed it all in a computer with 3D scans of the Tacoma frame and stuff like that, so that it can be perfect. And it works on second gens and third gens because they happen to have the same frame, just like they have the same body. Toyota didn't actually change a lot between them, other than the engine.
Yeah,
and a facelift.
One was good and one was bad.
Yeah, exactly. So
what you ended up going to 63s on the back end. And you think you ran a lot of it was the rough stuff you put in the back, right? Yeah.
I work with rough stuff. I have worked with them on quite a few projects. Like they've helped me out with the Heims on my pickup too. But they just make really quality builder parts, and they're like American made. They're solid. Like I've compared even stuff like the U-bolt flip tights. Trail gears are like a 1/4 inch, and theirs are like damn near 1/2 inch, way thicker. And I always bend the trail gear ones, and I've never bent a rough stuff one. You could tell that their focus is on like really beefy parts.
Right. Guys that actually use it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're reasonably priced too. Like their 63 kit is actually really cheap.
Yep. Yep.
And that's why I love 63s, is because it is a dirt cheap way of getting more lift and more flex and a softer ride out of the rear end, which is why I did it on the Tacoma, because it did so well on the pickup.
So maybe if you can explain what we're talking about when talking about 63s to our listeners that may not realize what a 63 is.
The Chevy 63 is, I think, it's like the longest mass-produced leaf spring on the market. Chevy's been using them since the early 70s, all the way through present. They're so easy to come by, and you can usually go to a junkyard and buy them like $100 for a set of leaf springs. No other leaf spring you're going to find at that cheap. Even brand new ones are pretty cheap compared to everything else, because there's just so many of them out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, Chevy's been making them for a very long time. But yeah, and because they're super long, you get a lot more flex out of them. And because they're long, you get a lot better or a lot softer ride out of it too. So it's a win. In some cases, like in the Tacoma, I put an anti-wrap bar on them because they're so long. Your axle will try to twist when you give it throttle. That's because a lot of us like to cut out the overloads, which help a lot. Like in the factory Chevy, they don't have it because they have full pack and overloads. But in the wheelers, we're trying to get them as soft and flexy as possible. So usually we'll cut down the overloads or remove them entirely, and remove a couple leaf springs while we're at it too, just to make it so it's softer and flexes.
Yep, it totally makes sense. Now, what else have you done for mods on the Tacoma? You got that front clip, converted over to the third gem.
Tons, 40's. What else is it? You've got the air locker front. It's got the Ford limited slip in the rear that came with the axles, which I don't love. It works for now. I kept it for budget reasons at the time, because it comes with a form of locker. So I'll test it out. If I don't like it, I'll swap it out in the future. I'm going to swap it out in the future. But not a lot.
Other than that, it's pretty set up. Yeah. And it works, though. You've taken it over the whipsaw out with some of the Jeep boys.
Yeah, and I drove it all the way to like the coast and back. No problem. Like it travels down the highway great. I think since we built it when did we finish? We finished it in May. We've got nearly like 16,000 kilometers on it.
Wow.
I drive it every day and and on the highway all the time too, when I'm going down to states and stuff. Like it's such a great build. And I built it specifically, like I wanted a newer vehicle that had the modern amenities of a newer vehicle, but I wanted to build it so it's tough enough so that I could drive the track down to the Rubicon, do the Rubicon, know that it's tough enough to do it and not worry about breaking anything, and then drive home and have that peace of mind. Where the pickup wouldn't want to do that because it's got Toyota axles. I'd be carrying all sorts of spare parts, or just towing the truck down and carrying spare. Exactly. So one of the biggest goals of the Tacoma was that I wanted something that I can drive down the highway, go wheel somewhere, and know it's going to get me home.
Yeah. Have you taken it down to the Rubicon yet?
No, it's on the list.
Yeah. But I did see the video a while ago where he went on the whipsaw, and it handled the whipsaw beautifully.
Yeah. The truck didn't even notice the whipsaw.
The whipsaw's not a super hard trail, but there's there's some obstacles, right? But
Tacoma makes everything look easy, like everything. It's so wide because of the tons that it's super stable, so you never really feel uneasy in the cab. It's so long that you're never really worried on hill climbs at all, whether it's going to roll backwards like a Jeep or something. And its only limitation is the amount of cab body it's got.
Has it taken much to get used to driving it off-road and on-road? It obviously handles differently, both, right?
It does. So I argue that it rides better now than when I bought it. but that's because I was driving it with worn out ball joints and tie rods and events doing it's all over the road. So that's the only thing I have to compare it to is a clacked out Tacoma versus a built Tacoma.
Yeah.
And that comparison, yeah, it rides great. I've been driving solid axle swap rigs for years, so it wasn't much of a learning curve as far as street performance goes. It's got a bit more body roll in the pickup because it weighs more and it's got a softer front end.
But that's got to be so much nicer on the FSRs.
Oh yeah, you just cruise down FSRs. You don't feel FSRs. It's awesome, which is crazy for a solid axle rig. And I remember the first time experiencing that, I was riding in Sean's Gladiator, and I couldn't believe how smooth it rode on forest surface roads for a solid axle. And now the Tacoma's built, and it rides like pretty much exactly the same as the Gladiator felt, as I remember the Gladiator feeling.
Yeah,
just modern solid axle stuff is just cushy. They figured out how to make it nice.
Yeah, they've been working on it for a while, right? So you took it out snow wheeling past weekend. How'd it go?
Goodish.
Other than the locker issue.
Yeah, that's the only issue. I immediately got sucked into a ditch because that's one of the biggest problems with it. I keep saying that. It's got a lot. It still relates to its width.
Yep.
Because it's got tons, it's wider than most tracks that are put in. Like when I'm following people, I'm always on the outside of the tracks getting sucked into the ditch on the other side because I can't drive down the tracks. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that track's constantly getting sucked from one side to the other on ditches. And I got sucked into a ditch immediately. Realized my locker wasn't working. Had to get a tug out. There's no way. But at that time, I was still at 35 PSI on my tires because I didn't air
Well, that's
down
a huge
yet.
difference.
Yeah. I went down to 7.5 immediately after that. And the biggest problem was the fact that I was at 35 PSI.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. And like say, I was out on the weekend as well, too, with some guys with 40s and doing snow wheeling with 40s. And there's some of the people that hang out with them, they're running the 50s and stuff like that. But it's a totally different ball game, snow wheeling with them than snow wheeling with my friends and I that are 33s and 35s because we're getting stuck all the time. And it was so much more fun running with the big boys.
I'm not convinced that Tacoma's better than the pickup was as snow. Even though the pickup had smaller tires, the pickup just weighs less. So it doesn't sink as much. It had a V8, a bit more torque. It had the crawler gears, so I can just on top. Whereas the Tacoma is pretty much, you're stuck with wheel speed, and that's it. Like the stuff that you want to creepy crawl on, the Tacoma won't do. It'll sink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm not totally convinced that Tacoma's where it's at. So it'll probably just continue being a daily driver during the winter, and I'll ensure the pickup to be the snow wheeler once it's done being built.
How's it running with the 40s on the snow, like regular road snow and ice and stuff like that?
It's not bad. I just drive around if my hub's locked all the time. So I just click the dial and when I need 4x4 to get through an intersection or something. And then I love how smooth it is to put it into 4x4 and out. It's just it's instant as soon as the dial's turned. And I don't know if that's because I don't have the front diff actuator. It exists. It physically exists in the truck, but the clutch, the fork is cut off it and it's plated off so that it still goes through the motion so that the computer still thinks that it's locked.
Okay.
Just to keep the 4x4 system happy.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, just to keep the 4x4 system happy, I had to keep the front diff actuator in there. Otherwise, it was just flashing lights and not happy.
Yeah. I never
it's
thought
literally
of that.
zip tied in my engine bay and attached, but the fork is cut off. So it's still going through its motion. And I have a feeling that's just going to be more reliable and more smooth in general because it's not actually actuating anything.
Yeah. There's no chance of it breaking down because it's not doing anything.
So I think that's like you don't have to put it in 4x4 and wiggle the truck back and forth to get it in the 4x4. It just is instantly in and instantly out. And I'm pretty sure I remember struggling a little bit with that, especially for low when the truck was stock.
Yeah. That I have an issue sometimes of coming out of 4 low for some reason. And I got to make sure that if I've had my rear e-locker on, that I've got to make sure that I turn that off well before I switch it back in out of 4 high. Because then I got to sit there and go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. It took me a bit to figure out how to put it into 4 low because I didn't realize you had to have your clutch in to put it in 4 low. I thought that was the weirdest thing ever in that truck. Like you don't just put it in neutral. No, that way you have the clutch in to put it in 4-low. I'm like, well,
I didn't realize that. Okay.
I probably took me 10 minutes to figure out how to put it in 4-low the first time I tried. I think I resorted to Googling it.
I can't be this dumb. It's got to be
Right?
something, right?
Why do I need to put my clutch in to put it in any gear? Just let me put it in gear.
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't realize that. So one of the things you like mentioned earlier, you got tons of great videos, a lot of technical videos on YouTube, which you've got some really big numbers on a lot of those tech ones. But what I want to learn about is fixing the engine rod knock with maple syrup.
Yeah, we did. We fixed it. The knock went away.
Exactly. It didn't knock anymore.
I wouldn't follow that guide. Like, it's not a life hack or anything. It's if you want to ruin an already ruined motor, it's a great way of doing it.
Oh, but it was funny though, right?
It was great. It was knocking so hard until it wasn't. It literally spat out the problematic cylinders, and it was great. It was smooth. It made no noise after it spat out the cylinders, and it continued running. It was unbelievable with 3 massive holes in the block.
Not recommended.
No, don't do it. But like, it was worth doing for science.
Oh, it was worth it for the content. Maybe if you tried a different weight of maple syrup, maybe
that might have made a difference. Yeah, maybe
not the real stuff, right?
Not the real stuff. Yeah, yeah.
So if somebody was looking at getting, say, a '92 Toyota pickup or a 4Runner, what's a couple things that you should keep an eye out when they're looking at shopping for something?
Rust, and that's pretty much it. 4Runners frames are a little bit worse than pickups. Pickups bodies are usually a little bit worse than 4Runners.
Yeah,
but that rule isn't set in stone. It can be either or. As far as 22 RE or 3-liter, I'm not convinced in any way, shape, or form that the 22 RE is better. I've seen just as many dead 22 REs as I've seen 3-liters. So
your brother,
dude, we went through the 4 different 22 REs in that truck. But it's not even just him. I've just seen just as many blown up 22 REs. At the end of the day, if you're shopping for an old Toyota, you're shopping for a platform. Like, you don't worry about the engine that's in it. Put in a 3.4. I don't know. That's same with like mileage. It's never ever bugged me buying high kilometer Toyotas. Like, my 4Runner's got over 500,000. The pickup's got 500,000. The Corolla 299,999 when I bought it, and I put over 100,000 on it.
Oh,
myself. Wow. It's still at 299,999 when I sold it because it's. So I had no idea what the actual mileage was. But
it could be a 1,000,000-mile one, and you don't know.
It could have been. It honestly could have been. But I don't know.
Let's talk about that thing.
The Corolla.
Let's talk about that Corolla.
So the Corolla was actually another one I bought from the dealership. It was a trade-in. It was also pretty rough. I needed a Gambler 500 car. Do you know what the Gambler 500 is?
You bet.
Yeah. It's just a big old event, like GPS event where you go to different waypoints, pick up trash, and party. It's a good time. But the idea is to do it in like cheap cars. Like, the rule of thumb is about $500 cars. Gamblers' like only rule is that fun is greater than rules, so there's no real rules. So, like, there's guys with stupid expensive vehicles that do it. It doesn't really matter as long as you're there to have fun and be a part of the event around all these other rednecks. It's really what it's about.
It is a redneck convention.
It is a redneck convention, and it's up. So I needed a car for that. This car was on trade at the dealership. This would have been 2017, I think, back when cars were still cheap.
Yeah.
I bought the car for $600 or $700. Now those Corollas are worth a lot more than that, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was going to an off-road rally. I was like, hey, we built a homemade lift kit, and I got my buddies at Grind Tires, Ethan specifically, to help me build the front bumper for it. So it had like a little rally bumper. And we took it to the Gambler. And then after that, we're like, man, this is such a great car. So we daily drove it for years after that until we got the Tacoma. And when we got the Tacoma, I sold the car to buy Tacoma parts.
There you go.
Which is great. As I said, I ended up selling the car for like $2,000, and I bought it $600 or $700. Like,
And
the
drove
small
it for
car
years.
and drove it for years. The small car market on a lot of things is crazy right now. I can't believe.
Oh, it's nuts. You've got the Toyota tax and then you got everything else on top of that. It's gotten brutal.
And it's not even just Toyotas, like even Jeeps and Nissans and everything. Everything costs a lot of money right now. Even Ford Rangers used to be $500 trucks all day long, but now they're up there with Toyotas. There was a time when Toyota pickups are $500 trucks too.
Yep. But yeah, everything has just gotten so much expensive. But mind you, that goes for everything, that food and all that stuff. Say if somebody going back to that 92 Toyota, they pick one up. What are some of the first modifications that you'd recommend for somebody just getting into, say, wheeling and I'm thinking like
I would throw a lunchbox locker in the rear. That is absolutely the first thing I would do. If I were to buy it, if I were to do it all again, I would just, the first mod I'd ever do is to put a lunchbox locker in the rear and then winch.
Yep.
So some way to self-recover yourself when you get in trouble and a way to get in trouble.
That's perfect. Those trucks are so light in the back end, that lunchbox locker shouldn't really give you any problems. So.
Yeah, and I know a lot of guys that just weld the IFS front diff too because they're manual locking hubs. You can just unlock it when you're driving on the street and it drives like normal.
Yeah.
And then you have a locker when you're wheeling if you want to do it super cheap. But it is actually somewhat common. At least here. I know a few rigs that run just a welded front and welded rear.
Yeah.
Lincoln lockers are cheap.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and a winch and you're all set. So
you don't need anything crazy for a winch. Like I'm by like no means like renting a Warren winch is totally overkill for most people. The point of diminishing returns is like the Smitty built 9500 or whatever it is. Like you spend $450 and you get a halfway decent winch, or you could spend $2,000 and you can get one that's 15% better.
For how much you use it, is it worth it, right?
Yeah, like the point of diminishing returns on that is like super low. It's just like rooftop tents. You can spend $1,000 on one, or you could spend $10,000 on one.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you still like you can't poop in it. It's just somewhere to rest your head. You're not cooking in it. Like you're just sleeping. Why do you need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it?
Have you seen a new one from Jackery come out where it's got the fold out? It's a hard shell. They just released it at a show somewhere, but it's a hard shell, and then it's got out of the roof, it's got these solar panels that fold out, and they're like twice as wide as the tent. And oh my god!
I don't even want to know how much that costs.
Exactly.
Honestly, I would still be a ground tenter if Freddie didn't hit me up and say, "Hey, you want one of our rooftop tents?" I am in no way sold on the rooftop tent game. Like, sure, it's convenient, but it's a lot of money for something that you're just going to sleep in.
Yeah. I've had a few different ones over the years, but I've also bounced back and forth with ground tents. And the big thing to me is being off the ground when it's raining.
Yeah.
You're
at the coast, right? I
know I'm in Kamloops.
Oh, you're in Kamloops. Okay. Well, that's less important to be out of the rain.
Yeah.
We don't have nearly as much here as the coast as far as rain goes.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, one of the best things I've ever done, if you're talking about overlanding or whatever you want to call it, was my awning. That has been one of my best purchases I ever made. Keep you dry when it is raining and keep you out of the sun. And I think I paid like $250 for it or $200 for it. And it's been absolutely wonderful.
Awfully overlandy, doesn't it?
It does.
I can bring myself to that. I don't want anything hanging off the side of my truck, man. It's bulky as it is.
Yeah, especially yours.
And the way I keep my rooftop tent set up is below the roof line. I don't want anything above the roof line, because if I drag the roof on a tree, I don't want the tent to catch it or I worry about anything like that. I'm the kind of person that lets trees drag over my cab.
Yep. Mine's below as well too.
Yeah,
so
I don't like the above roof tents. It adds the weight up top, moving your center of gravity higher, and it gives you something to catch stuff on, which is man.
It doesn't make sense to me, to be honest with you. And I've got a lot of friends who have theirs above the cab, but I'm like, you've got all that room, below the cab, but Each to their own, I guess. Everybody's got their own ideas on it.
I'm a very minimalist on my camping setup for that kind of
Me
stuff.
too.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't need that. I don't bring max tracks. I don't need solar panels. Like, the fact that I even have some sort of power bank is amazing too. But that was another one of those things that like Blue Eddy just hit me up. Hey, if we sent you this, would you use it in videos? I'm like, maybe, but I have it. And
Now I got to find something to plug into.
Yeah. And my wife loves it because she runs a heated blanket.
Ah, there you go.
That's pretty bougie. Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a pretty minimalist when it comes to you. I've got a couple totes I throw in the back, and I've got a folding
We
table.
We just threw a couple totes in and it's done. Actually, one tote to be specific. And it fits like your little camping stove and all that, and all our cooking stuff in that. And we usually just the Superstore bins, like the whatever grain bins. We go to Superstore, load that up with groceries, and I put it straight in the for the weekend. Like,
yeah, I do. As much as I hate to say it, I do have a fridge, but I'm still not 100% sold on the fridge because it wasn't worth the $1,000 or whatever I paid for it 6 years ago. I don't know. I'm still on the fence on that one myself. So,
it's once again the same thing. I don't know if I would have paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people swear by them, but I think if you're going out for 4 or 5 days, I think it'd definitely be, worth it.
Because when we did the whipsaw, like my fridge was dead before we got there. It drained my Blue Eddy.
Oh,
the power bank.
Yeah,
we were on the road because we did mostly back roads to get there. We were on the road for 3 or 4 days before that. And then they've got no means of charge. We could charge it with the cigarette lighter, but it was the fridge was draining more than the cigarette lighter could supply the power bank.
That's what I found with my Xterra. When I had my fridge in my Xterra, I was running out to the rear plug socket, and I changed the cigarette socket in the Xterra from the cheap factory one to a aftermarket, and that seemed to cure a lot of my problems. But you definitely want to have some way of charging it other than the battery.
Adding a, what do you call it? That's the word. To put 110 power in a vehicle. Inverter.
Oh, an inverter.
Adding an inverter would probably be the best way of doing it. But once again, that's adding more accessories that I just don't want to keep.
Keep it simple, man. Just keep it simple.
What I try to do is keep it simple. And you said you add things like a fridge, a rooftop tent, and all of a sudden you're overlanding.
I was going to say, you're coming up to being an overlander here pretty quick.
I don't have an awning. I don't have a coffee maker. I got a percolator. That's a good way of making coffee in the bush. I don't carry a saw.
I don't carry a saw because everybody else carries one.
That's usually it. Usually it's if I can't drive over it, usually I can winch trees out of the way.
Yeah. I've got one, but it's such a cantankerous SOB that to start that usually somebody else has got one. So that's usually not too bad. I think one of the big things, we always ask the question, what would you recommend to buy or first upgrades or stuff like that? And my biggest thing is just a tank of gas and a map app, and just go out and explore. So
I don't have any of them fancy phone holders or tablet holders.
Actually, I don't either. My mind goes down in the console and then I end up losing it. And
actually, the head unit in the Tacoma is an Android head unit, so it's got Gaia right on it. It's actually super sick. That's
nice.
That's the huge upgrade in the Tacoma, was having that big head unit. It's also got wireless Android Auto and stuff too, so playing my music is a lot.
See, when I bought my 2017 Tacoma a couple of years ago, and I'm like, this is great. It's got the big screen. I can put my Gaia up there. And 2017 didn't have Apple CarPlay in anything.
The aftermarket decks are way better than what Toyota's. Even 2023 trucks, better than what they give you in the factory.
Oh, yeah. I might have to look at that one day, but it's very low on the priority list. So
I think, isn't it Ford has the patent for wireless Apple CarPlay, which is why no manufacturers can do it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think there's a reason for it, or Chrysler. Somebody has some sort of patent so that nobody else can do the wireless CarPlay in their phones. Yeah. Gotcha. I think there's some sort of reason for it, why most manufacturers don't do wireless.
There's got to be one. Yeah, there definitely got to be a reason for sure. So,
but the aftermarket can obviously get away with it. It's an aftermarket accessory that you can add to your vehicle.
Exactly. So, let's talk about the Cranbrook Crawl. Mm-hmm. That looked like it was a fun little event for you guys.
it was awesome. It was a charity rock crawl event that we put on. It was the first year we did it was last year. We had a ton of spectators show up, which we didn't expect. We were hoping for spectators, but like we didn't know. We were feeling the waters. Same with getting people to register. I don't know if we got enough guys to even be into it, and we ended up getting, I think, nearly 50 guys registered for it. Most guys like ran it once and then left. There was another SAS Tacoma there that ran it once, and he's never rock crawled it before. And he realized that, I can't see anything over my hood. Yeah, that's the Tacoma thing. You need to rely on your spotter heavily. But it was his daily, and he was afraid of hurting it. So, and I think that was a few people, they were afraid of hurting their rigs. And they just wanted to check it out, ran it once, got scared. And where I think I ran it like a dozen times that day because we got to a point where we were just running out of people to keep going over it for the spectators. Just go run through it. And then I took a couple people with me and a couple runs. It was fun. It was a charity rock event. So all the registration for all the vehicles that entered, all that money went straight to charity. All of the spectators, we asked that they brought a food bank donation. So every single person that came to watch brought a donation, and we ended up raising a bunch of money and got like a truckload of food and stuff. It was good. It was a super good success. We had a meeting, I think, in 2 weeks here to figure out when the dates are for this year. Yeah, we're definitely doing it again. We're hoping for a better venue and a bigger venue and a bigger obstacles. I was a test dummy on a couple of the obstacles in the last one, and I was dragging my bumper down a few obstacles and stuff. I thought it was fine, but they were like, no, if you're dragging, we need to make it easier for the guys that don't have 40s and are going to rip off their back bumper on the stuff that you're dragging your steel bumper on. I'm like, yeah, but it's called a rock crawl after all. Like, you guys should know what they're getting into. And to be fair, we did have people registered that had 31-inch tires and stuff like that they're just not crawlers. But the point of doing it this year is so that people know what it is, and next year they'll know what to build for and know what to expect. So we figured make it tame, and if the obstacle's too hard, you can always do a bypass kind of deal. But it was fun.
Yeah, cool. So definitely back for next year. That's good to hear.
Definitely back.
Because there's nothing like that over in the Kootenays, really. As much as there's great wheeling in the Kootenays, there's nothing in regards to events.
There's not even
there,
I wouldn't necessarily say there's great wheeling. There's scenic wheeling.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
There's no dedicated trails or rock trails and like super technical crawling here. I wish there was, but there just isn't. We need to go out of our way to find that. We need to go down to Utah or to the coast or whatever. Whipsaw, I wouldn't even say is that technical
either. It has some obstacles on it.
It has some obstacles, and the obstacles are very few and far between. Like sometimes you need to drive a bunch of K between obstacles. It is more of an overlander destination, but the overlanders aren't doing all of the obstacles. If you know what I mean? I don't know.
A lot of them have bypasses and stuff too, right?
Exactly. So you can make it more fun by hitting the harder lines and doing all the obstacles, but it is more of an overlandy thing, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I know that the Whipsaw is such a iconic trail in BC. Everybody knows about it, etc. And I've gotten some feedback or some flack because I say it's not that great of a trail, but I think so many people need to explore out of the norm.
It's not that great of a trail if you're comparing it to like the Rubicon. The Rubicon is like obstacles back to back to back to back all the way through it. Like it's a very technical and scenic trail. The Whipsaw has some obstacles and is scenic, but there's nothing quite like it in BC. So it's iconic for BC.
Yeah. And it's so close for the Lower Mainland people, right? They're 2-3 hours away from it. And
and it's 7 for me.
Yeah, exactly. But there's lots of other trails like that in BC out your area, or we've got Crowsfoot in our area. And
I've done Whipsaw twice. And after the first time I said I'm never going to do it again because it was really bumpy FSR for most of it, but that was done in my pickup. But the Tacoma, because it's so much softer and a lot easier or better to drive on long bumpy FSRs, that's why I did it again. And I would do it again in the Tacoma. Yeah. But in the pickup just felt overbuilt for it because it's really rough and all of the obstacles are like nothing. For the Tacoma, it's overbuilt for it too, but at least it's comfortable.
Yeah. You got AC and
I got AC. Exactly. cushy ride, like nice.
Roll up the windows when it gets dusty. And
Yeah, exactly. Sound system, nice touch screen, all the modern nice things that you like from a newer vehicle. Got
yep.
everything.
I have to get out to the Coonies. I could get out into your area, and I'll definitely hit you up when I get out there. But
Good.
I think all of BC is there's such good trails out there. They may be simple trails or whatever, but the scenery makes up for it. We are so lucky in BC.
And Cooney specifically, like in the Rockies, there's so many beautiful spots that are like within an hour of my house.
Exactly. I think overall in Canada, I'm going to give a shout out to, I run a group on Facebook called BC Forest Fire Lookouts.
Yeah.
And for people wanting some good ideas and stuff like that, it's definitely a spot. But I think we're so lucky in Canada overall. Every province other than Southern Saskatchewan is beautiful. But you got the East Coast, you got Ontario.
Yeah.
I want to go up north. I want to do some wheeling up in the Yukon and that too one day.
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to talk to you is you're heading down to the KOH, right?
I am. Yeah. I had a pretty neat opportunity to go hang out with some friends and check out KOH.
Cool. Is this your first time going down?
Yeah, I've never been there before. So
it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, my friends from Grindhard Plumbing Co. They got asked to go down to put their monster chopper. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all.
No, I haven't.
So they got really popular originally building like Power Wheels cars with big dirt bike motors and stuff in them.
Okay.
But they've evolved to like crazy things since then. Like he's building a completely custom monster chopper with tube chassis and 54-inch Mickey Thompson tires on it. But the chopper is so cool that Mickey Thompson wanted it down in their booth at the vendor area in KOH.
Yeah.
And only Ethan, one of the guys from the channel, could go. So he was like, hey, you want to come hang out with me and help me make a video down at KOH? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess Mickey Thompson is looking after us, like giving us a trailer and all our food and stuff. And so, good, man. I'll take a paid trip down to KOH any day.
Yeah.
That part is I can't bring my own vehicle down, but
but
I think it'll still be worth it to just get a free ride down and go hang out.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that's going to be so much fun. Yeah, that's going to blow your mind down there for sure.
If anything, like I'll go this year and it'll give me a good idea of what it's like if I wanted to bring my own truck down there next year kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some Canadian teams down there. There's, I think, probably 10 teams, as far as I know, down there. I know that Tim and his brother from TMR, they're racing. Yeah, they're racing down there for their first time. They've been down there lots, but they're racing for the first time down there. So, it should be a good time down there for sure. So,
I got their steering kit on my Tacoma.
Good guys. I did an episode with Tim. Oh, it was one of the first ones. I think it was back about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And I actually have to say to our listeners, if you haven't heard that one, go back and check it out because it's an interesting backstory with TMR and how it started and how they've grown. And a lot of people don't actually realize that they're a Canadian company.
No, I'd probably not.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, because you see them used in a lot of YouTube builders and stuff that are using their parts because they have very specific parts that you just can't get anywhere else. Like the high steer arms for the early Super Duty axles. I physically couldn't buy them anywhere but through TMR.
Yeah.
They were pretty cheap too.
Yeah, they're most of the stuff is all really good quality and it's all made in Canada, which is cool. And it was funny because Tim was saying I keep in contact throughout the years, and he's saying that majority of their sales go to the States, and a lot of them go through dealers as well in the States. So imagine a lot of people don't even realize that they're a Canadian company.
Yeah, probably not.
So it's cool to see some of these Canadian companies make it big.
That's like the art droid that I'm using in my shop now, the CNC Plasma. That's also Canadian.
Yeah.
And that's used by tons of people in the States.
Yeah. Fast Cut is another one. It's actually right here in my hometown. I really like seeing those Canadian companies making it outside of Canada.
And usually I'd like to support and use their parts before anyone else too, if I can as well, because it's just cool. Or at least like North America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's certain things that you have to get out of Canadian or out of American companies. And
exactly.
You've also got relationships with some of the American companies, but
if you like at the end of the day, most of my demographic is from the States, so it makes most sense for me to have pretty good relationships with American companies as well.
Yeah, no, that
I
makes
think I'm
sense.
like 80% United States viewership.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah.
You look at it, all of California has more population than all of Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And most people in the States don't even know that.
yeah.
Canada has such little population, even though we're freaking huge.
And 80% of it's within 100 miles of the border.
Yeah, exactly. Our population density is so spread out and very.
Yep.
I'm ready to half an hour from the border.
Exactly, right?
And I love it. So I go down to the States all the time.
Yeah, especially you get stuff shipped to the border, pick it up down
easy.
there,
Yeah,
and fuel and all that stuff.
Yep.
You know, eggs and whatever. What is your favorite kind of wheeling? You seem to be into the rock stuff, but I don't think you're a mud guy, are you?
I'm far from a mud. I hate mud. Mud is so dumb. It makes everything so hard to work on for years after going through it. It part on parts, like it's just it makes your truck all dirty.
You got to spend 3 hours cleaning it.
3 hours cleaning it. It makes if you go through a mud pit and then you drive on the highway, all of a sudden you look like a hazard to the cops. Like it's just not even worth dealing with. I'm definitely the kind of person that goes around mud holes.
Yeah,
I don't see it as an obstacle. Anyone can put their foot to the floor and rip through a mud puddle. There's nothing technical about it. It's not worth it.
I've really noticed that people are either anti-mud or they're pro-mud. There's no in between, right? Like I'm the same as you. I try to avoid mud myself. My co-host Trisha, she loves mud, and I just don't understand it.
Sometimes I'll see a little like mud puddle or something. I'm like, hey, okay, this will look good on camera. So we'll set up the camera and go through it. But it's not something I would normally do. But mud in slow motion on camera looks great.
Yes. Yes.
As far as my favorite wheeling, like I really Utah wheel. It's the land attraction. It's not super difficult, but it is technical. And it's just super wide. You're not really worried about body damage in Utah. There's not trees and the weather's nice. And it's different. And I think that's why I like it. Well, the one time I went to Moab, there was a couple there who are locals, and they said that I was crazy for being down there because they come to Fernie every year to go wheeling. I was like, why would you go to Fernie to go wheeling? But it's the same thing. They were like, why would you come to Utah? It's because that's what they're used to. That's just what I'm used to. So I don't see the appeal of wanting to. So I think that's probably it. I'd say Utah wheeling is probably my favorite. I also really love snow wheeling. Have to love snow wheeling.
I was going to say, you don't have much of a choice in the Kootenays. You got winter 6 months of the year.
Exactly. Usually winters from October to May.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you don't have much of a choice.
Yeah. And like high alpine stuff, like isn't really accessible till August. And then you have 1 month.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that is one thing my big thing is getting up into the alpine but years say July and August, maybe part of September, if you're lucky, depending on how high you're going up. So
you'll still find you're doing snow crossings in August.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just parts that, just have snow all year. I mean, then it's full of glaciers up in the Coot.
Especially your area. That's a little different than Kamloops or Kelowna kind of ideas.
So colder than you guys do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If there's anywhere that you could wheel in Canada, where would you like to go?
In Canada?
Yeah.
It's something I've never thought about. In Canada. Man, I only think about places I want to go in the States. What is there in Canada?
You talk to the listeners. There's lots of good wheeling in Canada. So I guess it all depends if you're looking for scenic. It's tough to beat the Kootenays for scenery.
I feel like I live in the area where a lot of people say, I'd love to go wheeling.
It is.
I've done coastal wheeling. I've done Okanagan wheeling. Maybe north. Yeah, north. Not the Caribou. It's pretty flat and hilly there. Even more north.
Newfoundland's not bad. Yeah, something different.
Newfoundland, yeah. Be something different. I honestly have not put much thought into it.
Yeah. It's just a total random question that popped up, but
I've never put any thought into it because I feel like I've done a lot of the like iconic stuff, at least in BC.
I know when we've asked people that before, especially people from Ontario or East Coast, They say the Rocky Mountains, and you're right in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. So you're
literally they're all right through my town.
Yeah, exactly. You're where everybody else says. So yeah, it's tough to beat. So the last question that we ask all our guests is, what Canadian would you like to listen to on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Probably Bruce Cook.
Excellent choice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Has anyone else suggested him?
I think somebody else did too, and I can't remember who it was, to be honest with you. But Bruce Cook is a
Nitro Circus thing, and now he's doing the 4x4 recoveries and stuff on his channel. Yeah, probably Bruce Cook.
Yeah, I do have to reach out to him because for those of you who don't know, Bruce is a BC resident that was doing Nitro Circus for a number of years with the dirt bikes and had an accident. And he's in a wheelchair now, but he is still crazier, maybe even crazier than he was before.
His accident was doing a double front flip on a dirt bike, which makes 0 sense. It shouldn't work.
The guy needs a wheelchair because his balls are so big. He has to pack him around.
He's still super crazy, like jumping Corollas off of these massive jumps in his compound, and he still does backflips on his dirt bike.
Yeah,
even though he's paralyzed, he's insane. It's awesome. He's a great guy to be around. He's a great guy to talk to. So absolutely, I'd say Bruce.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to hook up with Bruce for sure because I think he's just got so many stories and such a really neat guy. And everything I've heard about him, everybody loves him. And,
and he's not too far from you too.
Yeah, he's nice and close.
Yeah,
2-3 hours and I'm there, right? So it's a couple hours away. But once again, we're talking to Clinton from Dirt Garage. If you haven't checked him out on YouTube, you got to, especially if you're a Toyota guy. I'm sure you've already heard or seen his videos. But yeah, definitely recommend checking out Dirt Garage, the merchandise, dirtgarage.ca, and of course, the YouTube and the Instagram and the Facebook, but definitely on the YouTube. Yeah. That's the key one.
That's where all the latest and greatest of everything I'm doing is on YouTube. Sometimes through Instagram stories, I'll put some spoilers and stuff like that, but
majority on YouTube,
but majority is on YouTube. That's where you get all of the everything I'm doing and all the information on how I'm doing it, and as you said, the technical how-tos and learn how my brain works.
Yeah. So what do you got coming up beside the KOH? You're heading off to that, and by the time this releases in a couple weeks, you'll be back. So look forward to hearing how everything worked out with you down there. But besides that, and besides the Cranbrook Crawl, what do you got planned for next year?
I think we're heading down to Easter Jeep. I like Easter Jeep. It's a pretty nice event. It's always fun going down to Easter Jeep and Toyotas because you feel like some sort of black sheep
of the family.
It's fun. Nobody's upset about it. Obviously, everyone's just down there to have a good time. And we'll it's just fun being like the only Toyota on the trails full of in a sea of Jeeps. And it's a good vendor weekend to go hang out and meet people and socialize. So that's what I really like about it is the socializing aspect and networking. It's a good event to go to that too. Other than that, I think that's the only thing we really have planned as far as trips after KOH.
To see what the summer brings.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube timeline. I'm very just go with the flow. If opportunities present themselves, I'll make it happen. But
one of the questions I meant to ask you was about your brother's truck, his solid axle swap one he's got going on. What's the status on that? How's that working out?
That one is currently getting LS swapped.
Okay.
My brother has always been a Chevy guy. Always diehard Chevy guy. It was hard to get him into Toyotas. He had that 85, but he got rid of it because he crap. That other truck he got on a trade, essentially thrown in on a trade, so it owes him nothing. So he decided I might as well build this truck because he had a 68 Chevy show truck that he built a number of years ago, which is what he actually sold. And he got the Toyota thrown in on top of it as a trade. So I got rid of one toy. I got another toy out of it, so I might as well make this my own because it needs to have a Chevy motor. My toy, it's got to be Chevy.
Okay, to their own, right?
I'm gonna enjoy it. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun series putting the LS in it, and seeing how that works and how it fits. And LS is a new platform to me to learn, so it'll be interesting to show off.
Yeah, no, that'll make for some good content, I think, for sure. Because I think they're definitely a lot more common than the one swap or
absolutely.
right? So yeah. And an LS motor, they're a dime a dozen, and
They're cheap. I think we got
like a lot of
a whole truck for $100.
Yeah, exactly. I think that'll be some good content for sure. So looking forward to that one. Once again, thanks, Clinton, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Dirt Garage on YouTube, and we look forward to seeing what you got coming up this year. It's going to be interesting.
Thanks for having me on again. All right,
not a problem.
Thanks again for having me on. That's the word I meant.
There we go. Sounds good, man. Thank you.
No worries.